For our partner presentation, we decided to observe a 16-month boy, and we tried to find as much as we could for the 4 stages of development. We observed Stephen in the stages of cognitive, motor, emotional, and language, all important stages of development we'll be discussing today along with our findings. I decided to observe Stephen's cognitive development. Cognitive development is how children think and explore the world around them. One example of cognitive development I saw during observation took place when Stephen was in his play area. His mom would ask him to retrieve a specific toy from the toy chest. Stephen would then find the exact toy and bring it to her. This example shows that sometime in the past that the mom has shown him the toy and given it a name. It also shows that he is able to not only recognize the name, but he is also to act on being asked to do something. So he's recognizing that he is being told to do like an action. Stephen, being 16 months old, fits into Piaget's first stage of development, which is sensory motor. This stage primarily focuses on beginning to understand the world around them, and is working towards metacognition. During this stage, there are some tests you can perform to track your child's cognitive growth. One of these is the object permanence test, which we did with Stephen. I brought over 2 blankets and sat in front of him. I showed him my keys, which he was very interested in. I then proceeded to place my keys under one of the blankets. I would try mixing them up and try to confuse him to see if he was able to pay attention. Each time he was successful in finding the keys. So, object permanence is the understanding that objects continue to exist when not perceived. So when we hid the object, he was still able to track where it was and able to find it on his own.
As for motor development, there are several different milestones that our textbook by Feldman and gives, and some of these milestones they're ranked by month. So, such as like around 3 months, usually the infant starts rolling, and around 16 months, which is where Stephen is, it's where they start experimenting with climbing with stairs while standing up. There are 2 separate types of motor development, fine and gross. Fine motor development is the coordination of small muscles in movements, usually involving synchronization of hands and fingers with the eyes. So they're usually like smaller movements, whereas gross motor skills are larger movements that babies make with their arms, legs, and feet, or their entire body, such as walking, crawling, and stuff like that. So some of the stuff that I observed with Stephen for gross motor skills was wrestling, stair climbing, running, and his climbing skills. Now, wrestling, we did not actually like observe it fully, but as we were talking with his mother, and she was explaining how he has been experimenting with roughhousing with his father, and we also observed him climbing all over things and being just a little boy. Stair climbing, which is the stage that he has reached, he has started to experiment with that as well. He has been able to climb up and down stairs, but he has not yet experienced the falling down, so he hasn't reached the point of being cautious with it yet. As for running, we observed a lot of that. He loved to run. He ran everywhere, and he barely fell. He only fell one time, which shows that he is a confident runner, which follows with the milestone of his age that he should be at. He also was climbing all over things, including the couch and onto people's laps and just over everything. So as for motor development, he is on track and is a very active little boy. For fine motor skills, he has been experimenting a lot with. When we first arrived, he was eating his afternoon snack, and we were able to see him play around with his fork, and he was experimenting with his utensil skills. So he was able to stab, for the most part, a lot of times he would grab it and put it on the fork, but he was able to put it into his mouth. His throwing skills are also something that we observed. He played catch with me for a good amount of time, and he was able to throw it across the room and was able to make some easy catches. He is also experimenting with doors and drawers. He is unable to use his fine motor skills to twist the door handle, but he is able to pull out drawers. And he loves opening and closing the doors. But button pushing is one of his favorite things. And as we were talking with his mother, we learned that he loves to start the washer because it is within his reach and it's a button. And we also observed him pressing other buttons, and which is example of his ability to use his hands and his arms.
Next is the emotional development stage. At this stage, children are beginning to express their emotions and start to recognize other feelings. This is kind of where they start to learn that others are interacting with the world just as much as they are. They're also trying to be the center of attention. This is kind of where they're getting certain reactions from certain people, and they start to recognize that this is a good reaction, so they'll start to repeat certain things to get that same reaction. During this stage, children are also looking toward their parental figures for guidance. The emotional bonds that children have, or they make at this stage, are very valuable to them later in life. For example, their relationship with their parents and their attachment can affect their levels of trust as adults. This leads to my next topic, secure attachment. Secure attachment is when a child has a healthy level of trust with their caregiver. This can be in terms of trust that their caregiver will come to check on them when they are crying, or that they will be provided for. Secure children not only trust their caregivers, but they are more trusting of others outside of their immediate family. So Stephen was very welcoming to us. He was shy at first, but he would look to his mom and look at us for reassurance, but he was very comfortable with us being there. Secure children use their caregivers as a type of home base because they will stray, but they will continue to return for reassurance. So they can go off on their own and they'll explore, but they will also come back for that home base reassurance, just to make sure that you're still there. They also are comfortable with strangers, like how Stephen was with us. They might look at their caregiver for a quick second for approval, but as soon as they are assured, they are very welcoming. We tested this with Stephen by having his mom walk out of the room. Stephen looked around for her and walked around. He walked up and down the hall looking for her. But he returned to where we were sitting and continued interacting with us. A child with avoidant attachment would not be so quick to interact with us and would become very anxious very fast. Stephen was very comfortable with us, he was interacting with us, and even when his mom wasn't present, he still acted very similar. He said he did go looking for her, but he didn't get upset, he did not cry, he was very comfortable.
As for his language development, he is excelling. Language development is the learning of the purposeful arrangement of syllables and sounds. And a language development is one of the most important stages of development just because it is used throughout a child's entire life. And it also affects education and future careers and several different aspects. Now, some of the stuff that I observed with Stephen's language development was, one thing, he was responsive to conversation. This showed that even if he was unable to fully express what he wanted, he was able to fully understand what people were saying to him and what was going on. For example, his mom has told us that her and Stephen's father have been having to spell certain words because Stephen has been able to associate those words with whatever they mean. Or they've also been having to find other words in place of those words just so he doesn't recognize whatever they are talking about. Also, we were able to observe when she would ask him something, just as Olivia said earlier, like when she asked him about a toy, he understood what she said and was able to process that word and associate it with what it was. He is also starting to form sentence fragments, which is common for this stage, where he will say 3-word sentences such as like to eat or I want drink. They are not true sentences, but it's enough to get his point across, and whatever he says, it makes sense to him. He also has story time several times a day, and which helps with his language development skills, and it's obvious with what we were able to observe. He is constantly read to, and which helps increase his vocabulary and his comprehension of what is being said around him. He has specific favorite books. He has 2 that are specifically his favorite. One is about a dog named Fergus. That it's a really cute. We actually watched his mother read it to him at one point during our observation, and when we were observing that, we were able to see that he was fully understanding what she was saying, and he was even able to anticipate one of the following pages that she hadn't even turned to by saying what was written on that page. Another thing that we were able to observe was he repeated several phrases. He was constantly doing that, where like his mom would say something or we would say something, and he would repeat 1 or 2 words of what we had said. This is important because it's helping him to remember and learn these words, and also associate them with the things that are with whatever the word is. One thing that was really cute and also really sweet that he was doing was he babble read, to where he would pick up a book and he would sit down and he would look through it and pretend to read. Now this helps, it's not actually reading, but it is helping with the process of reading, just because he is trying to make those sounds, he's making those sounds and practicing their phrasing and the way that it sounds and what it would be like. Now, in conclusion, we talked about several different stages of his development, including the cognitive, motor, emotional, and language development. Each of these stages we were able to observe and support with several different academic sources. Stephen is a sweet, active little boy who is on the right track in his development. He is excelling in several different areas and average in several others. And it was a pleasure to being able to observe him and get to know him better.